Hello, and welcome to this virtual roundtable discussion, where we'll spend 20 minutes discussing how to manage the multi-channel ecosystem. This is one of a series of 3 videos on building a seamless multi-channel experience. The videos, sponsored by Airship, form the basis of an article in the Future CMO supplement, published in the Sunday Times. I'm your host, Morag Cuddiford-Jones, and I'm delighted to be joined by 5 of the world's most influential leaders in this space. They are Steve Tan, VP and General Manager, EMEA APAC for Airship; Mantas Ratomskis, Head of CRM and Retention at Kilo Health; Angela Byrne, Digital Banking and Transformation NatWest; Holly Ainger, CMO Nuffield Health; and Neil Kirby, Marketing and Consumer Director at Bupa Global. I'm going to kick off by asking, how easily can marketers coordinate messaging across multiple channels?
I think there are 2 aspects to this that I would touch on. One is the timeliness and relevance of data and enabling us to do so, and then also the use of technology within that. So I guess from our perspective, from technology perspective, we've got a lot of connectivity now through APIs, which means the transfer of data, depending on which channel a customer chooses to do business with us in, is really connected and actually seamless in terms of that experience. So I think that's the first part, which is the technology part. And then the relevant data becomes really appropriate. And again, the timeliness of that and the sourcing of that becomes really apparent when we talk about the experiences that we want customers to have, particularly with regards to messaging.
Would anyone else like to join in?
I think I can add to what Angela said, that there is one part which depends mostly on data relevancy, on channels and so on, but the key thing at the moment, I think, is creativity. Given that we are living in a highly private world already, due to GDPR, all that cookies consents and all that stuff, most of the messages and most of the delivery channels depend on you, how you are going to harness it, because you own a lot of data and you are in charge to make assumptions, to segment that data correctly, to predict behavior, and then we face the part of technology when you have to use such tools as the same Airship or Optimove and others, just to be sure that you are doing it right, that you are making assumptions based on the real data, and then you deliver message according to the channel. Like I say, just like a balance. You will never deliver one sentence via email and so on. So most of the time, we have to rely on the managers who are actually in charge of delivering that messaging, rather than blindly relying on what we can get via, like integrated channels or media agencies and so on.
Exactly. Both Neil and Steve, you're nodding away there.
I think the kind of tailoring and personalizing those messages across those channels is so important. If you think about the single customer view, sort of process of every message that someone receives should be tailored to them, personalized to them, but also linking in through the buying behaviors. So, we really spend a lot of time understanding what those various different behaviors are and how we can make sure that that message is relevant, which Angela mentioned earlier about it not just being standard and stock. And there's so many different channels now. If anything, it's so important, and the messages that all of our customers are getting are so huge now. How do you make yours stand out?
And just to lead on to that, I think the messaging relevance is super important. I guess there's the digital element, but then even if you have all that data and insight, either from an email or campaign perspective, how do you make sure when a customer then comes into your physical non-digital channel, they hear the same voice talking to them? So how do you ensure your frontline teams are saying the same things as what customers are saying? So I think there always has to be that strategy of, yes, we can get better with digital and data, but we also need every single human being in the business to echo that value and the same messages to customers. Where I think it's almost like holistically, that's where the messaging and the brand of the business is still so important, and that's executed in different ways that personalized both online and offline as well.
Yeah, consistency and I mean coordinating across those channels is critical. I mean it's an evolution though, right? Isn't it? We've come from unfortunately a very channel-centric view. Some of that comes from vendors where we've built out support for certain capability, or you have to go to the other vendors for support for other channels. And now you've got to bring all that together. But ultimately, the sort of the future of marketing is really less about scheduling campaigns, but more about reacting, delivering in real time automation against as you point out, behavior, because you want to really turn to a much more customer focused approach to marketing, so be able to react to them and deliver based on the here and now, which is kind of driven by mobile, really, isn't it? I mean, everything you expect on mobile is now instant.
Yeah, we recently had a discussion regarding what is the future actually of the marketing, what the future of the messaging in general. One part is all about technology, how we are going to use multi-channels and how we are going to make that messaging consistent throughout the entire lifetime of the customer. But another part is actually about the strategy, and that strategy is all about storytelling rather than one-off campaigns. When customer from the very beginning, since the Hail Mary period, he's like living the story. You are the voice with whom he can relate, and he must trust you, because for quite a long time, entire technology market was all about that paradigm, which was you have to have the best product in the market, and that's done. Customers will stick with you. But at the moment, we are facing reality that we have thousands, even millions of great products. And to distinguish yourself from entire crowd, you have to have the human voice. You have to be empathetic, and you have to speak with the customers, and you have to sort of lead them throughout their stories. Because once customer starts to use your product, he has a goal, and you have to help him to achieve that goal.
Angela, you're nodding.
I would add to that. I'd say that what's really important is that we will have, as will other industries, have seamless digital experiences, but customers will always crave that human support where it's needed. And so the whole balance that Mantis was talking about there in terms of a digital experience, but also that human support in sort of moments that matter, or important pivotal moments for the customer, that's crucial going forward. I think we also we touched on there the life cycle approach. So effectively over the course of the customer life cycle, when they have different needs at different points in their lives, just absolutely being timely around that from a data perspective, but also and messaging perspective, but also not being afraid to confirm data with customers over the period of their life cycle as that changes. And the information we pick up, particularly that's relevant in financial services, because we're heavily regulated and rightly so. It's important that over the nature of our relationship with customers and over that life cycle, we continue to confirm that data over a period of time.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking there about, the immediacy of data and getting feedback and reacting as well to customers and trying to get all that information in and act on it. And you've mentioned an interesting thing that isn't often considered in our very digital universe, which is asking the customer, not trying to chase them around the internet and pick up a cookie here and there, surreptitiously, a bit like, Inspector Gadget picking things up. But, trying to just saying, well, are you coming up in financial services? Are you coming up to a wedding, to a retirement? Are you wanting to buy your new house? In terms of asking for that information, Neil, there was something interesting when I was doing a bit of research about Bupa Global. Something that you'd said not so very long ago was that insights remain human and not digital. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what this means, particularly for Bupa's clients? The Bupa Global's clients aren't necessarily, the same cadre as the high street retail banks.
Yeah, look, I think back to the previous points of it, having more channels, more engagement, more data, I think is always seen as a positive thing. But At the same time, the brand has to be transparent, even more transparent across all those different touch points. And I always think there's a danger of, to your point, not asking questions, but going, right, I've got this wealth of data, how do I use it? And analyzing stuff you can get your hands on, which, you know, there's a kind of diminishing return on investment if you keep on, in effect, optimizing. And I think sometimes there is a danger that we leverage digital, not too much, but it's something we can leverage, but we can't forget that actually if we talk to customers, or we have a NPS tool that gives us daily verbatims from customers looking at consumer sentiment, and that's deeper and richer than sitting, you know, trying to figure out what the data is telling you. So I think that's, the data's key, but I don't think we should ever lose track of, I'm sure we've all been in the joys of, you know, sat in a focus group trying to decide, you know, what question to ask. That's still a really, really rich source of information. And I think for people global in particular, from a high net worth perspective, you know, yes, digital is a great component as part of that experience where they want to do very transactional things, and you know, they don't want to prepare to phone someone up about something, but at the same time, they also want a richness of talking to a human being, especially a clinician when it's health related. So you don't want to push everybody down the digital route, but it's suited for different things. I'm just really passionate we never lose that kind of really simple, let's do some qualitative insight with some customers, because only then can you really measure what they feel passionately about.
Yeah, the thing is that technology, you can make a lot of assumptions with technology, exactly. Right? And as you point out, you have to ask whether it's the end consumer preference, or in your point, focus groups trying to understand exactly how are they using these things, or how would they like to ultimately, and sometimes they don't know because they don't know what's in front of them.
Yeah, and what is really, this is very interesting angle actually, because regarding questions which you ask your customer, there are always one critical point that most of the time customers answer having in mind what would be lovely to have, rather than what is critical to proceed with the service, what is critical to use on a daily basis. And most of the time answers are sort of implied, because customers are high on emotions when they fill surveys. Either they are extremely happy with the service, or they are extremely disappointed with the service, or they had just unpleasant conversation or very pleasant conversation with the customer support, for example. And each time when you speak with them, it is very hard to get the real essence of the conversation when they are on two polars. One polar is a bad emotion, and another polar is really great emotion, because most of the customers which are sort of that's okay, they are in a dormant segment. And when you start to rely, lots of products start to rely too much on surveys of customer surveys, and then it makes the development strategy sort of unclear, because they are developing product which would be nice to have rather than to solve the real problem. This is why I'm a bit skeptical regarding NPS, because as a CRM and retention manager for quite a long time, I was sort of in the middle of the marketing, product, and customer success. And most of the time I saw that the biggest amount of sort of a feedback from the customers comes after crashes, breakdowns, downtimes, and all that stuff. And that feedback is irrelevant. So as Neil mentioned, it is extremely important to make that feedback collection very human, and that must be done not like in a Google form sheet, but it must be done in a private conversation when you have to unlock the potential of that feedback, rather than simply asking, like, mark this and that. Because when customer is unhappy, and when you ask him to fill the survey, most likely he will be glad to fill his feedback on a Trustpilot, and you won't love that.
I mean, Holly, it's interesting. I think from a Nuffield perspective, obviously it's been very online, but Nuffield obviously has the connections with customers on a daily basis. How is that feeding into? Have you noticed a change perhaps with the digital experience and changing the way people interact on?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has probably given us significant challenges. You know, our CCO actually talks about digital first but human when it matters, and I think that's become even more so over the past sort of 12 to 18 months. When you think about the insights, and I've been listening to what everyone has been saying, for us, I would say that we've dialed up our insights and understanding what the customer needs and how their behaviours have changed and how their requirements have changed more than ever. And, you know, Mantos talked about NPS not being the only thing. It absolutely shouldn't be. It's a moment in time. And what we've done is really looked at a full customer insight strategy that gives us the data, the insights and the behaviours to then speak to those individuals personally. And we've done more research and insights with our customers in the past 12 to 18 months than I genuinely think we ever have. But what it's done is it's probably changed our whole approach to the whole customer value proposition. You know, making sure that the customer is put first, which we should all do, right? But do we always do it? Because sometimes we think we've got to work at pace and we've got to move things forward, and we sometimes maybe circumnavigate it a little bit. So I would say that actually I've enjoyed the last 12, 18 months of getting back to what you do best, which is putting the customer first.
And Angela, from a NatWest perspective, we're talking about things that are emotional, and, you know, customers won't really speak up when it's okay, it did its job, you know, it did its thing. You know, as Holly was saying, that, you know, the last 12 to 18 months have been a highly emotional time, but particularly for financial services. In terms of the insights that you've been getting and how that's helped you look at how your customer experience develops, has anything revealed itself to you through that about perhaps looking in different areas for insights from customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think to add to the points made, research is pivotal no matter what. So what we found across the last, I suppose, 12 to 18 months is that obviously a lot of our customers have used digital more and more. That will be the same across many different industries. But what we are finding is research and that value exchange. So what's important to customers in certain situations has become more apparent, and that's the same for whether it's a digital experience or whether it's a human experience. And my view is what's really critical is when we're designing these experiences, they're as simple and easy as possible, because what's happened over the last 12 to 18 months, where customers have needed our support more than ever, in terms of payment holidays, in terms of support with their businesses, but also in terms of, you know, support with their finances and so on and so forth. Having the simplest experience possible for those customers, but also to give them that, I suppose, peace of mind as quickly as possible has been really pivotal. Now, in a regulated business, which of course financial services are, it's really key that we give people that insight and give people the, you know, explain the decisions that they're making and what that means and so on and so forth. So there's a real balance around that ease of experience and making sure that we are, you know, compliant with regulation and ensuring customer outcomes are as good as they can possibly be. But my sort of view, and it's been reaffirmed over the last, I suppose, 18 months, is research and design is important no matter what experience you're designing. And actually, when over the last 18 months, when we've been less able to have as much human support as we would have normally liked, that's become even more important. And that simple experience design. Now we can take that forward as we move forward in the next, you know, over the next year, 2 years, and so on and so forth. And I guess it blends to that omni-channel experience, because it's not a one size fits all. It's a how do we let those experiences complement each other, so customers can start in one channel and get that human support where needed, and it just feels like one experience as opposed to two separate experiences. That's been difficult, I think, for a lot of industries because of you know, investment, technology, and so on and so forth. That's simpler now. And what we have seen over the pandemic is how quickly we can respond to customer needs when you know, they really need us, and how quickly we're able to stand up some experiences that previously would have taken us months and months and months.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Please do click through to the other 2 videos in this series, where we'll be discussing what it means to build a seamless digital experience. and how to create relationships that make customers want to come back again and again. I'd like to thank our panelists for being so free with their views and experience. But most of all, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful.